We'll now start with our questions. We'll start Mr. West from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, also ranking member. Thank you. And thanks for the panel for being here. First question, I'd like to go to Dr. Slaughter and Dr. McDowell. As I was listening to you speak and read your testimony, I was writing down what seems to be some negative factors that you listed, which are driving our small firms to go into partnerships with larger firms, such as capital access, sales, taxes, favorable lending environment, streamline the tax code, access to business experts on staffs, and access to research assistants. So if I could get your insights, where are the places where legislators such as ourselves have added to these negative factors, and how can we alleviate some of these negative factors as we move forward?
So that's a great question, Congressman West.
Thank you.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts come to mind. One is clearly on the tax code. I think folks on both sides of the aisle here in Washington and the business community acknowledge America has one of the most complex, high burden, effectively, tax codes around the world. It's a challenge for the Intels, but as Dr. McDowell and others know from their scholarship and others, the order of magnitude and the degree of the complexity for the small business community is massive. So it's not just for C corporations. I think one of the things to keep in mind then with tax reform is a lot of these small businesses, especially when they start, they're S corporations, they're partnerships, they've got a lot of different legal entities where a lot of the taxable events flow through onto the personal side. So one is mindset. When you're thinking about business tax reform, corporate tax is important, but it has to be linked up with a lot of individual tax issues. And then again, the broad issues that a lot of economists from all parts of the political spectrum will acknowledge of broadening the base, reducing the complexity, lowering the rates. That's one. I think the other thing is, I'm not sure what the policy implication is, but I'll just point out on the issue of capital access. Clearly, in the wake of the world financial crisis, there's an issue about how the banking system is working. Some people will look at large corporations in America and they wonder to complain about the large amount of near cash assets that large corporations have on their balance sheets. But as we just heard in the testimony, a great advantage of that actually is as our financial system struggles to heal, paradoxically, it can be the business sector that provides a lot of the key financing needs for small businesses.
I would agree that when we look at the tax issues of the past 25 years, that has been the #1 issue. So I think just the complexity of it, all the new taxes, the green credits, the different things like that, they only add to the burden of the small business in comparison. I mean, it's a burden to the large business as well, but they have the resources to take care of those things. Small businesses don't have those resources, so that's one major issue that we have to look at. But also when we think about the legislation, what they've done to help or hurt with the access to capital, recently there was just so much uncertainty out there. Banks make their money by lending money. I mean, that's how they want to make money. They want to do that. But yet with all the regulations and the changes that occurred, there's just a lot of uncertainty. And some of the bankers that I work with in my regular work with small businesses, they want to lend, they want to do things that will help them make money, but of course the regulations are very difficult for them. And for small businesses, of course, with the less access to capital or assets, to utilize as collateral, more guarantees, more things like that from the SBA can be very helpful and beneficial in those situations.
Well, thank you. Mr. Brooke and Mr. Blackburrow, as I was listening, it seems like this is like the second, third generations of a great thing about small firms partnering with bigger firms. You talked about Intel with IBM and now Energetic with Intel. So if you could just briefly talk about what you saw as the lessons learned, the best practices in that relationship that you all experienced over these couple of machinations.
Well, I suppose I could begin with the alignment on very long-term programs. And I want to commend the committee for looking at research and development in particular and the partnerships between large and small companies. Because unlike many short-term issues that work within election cycles, these issues may take many, many years. And if you look at NASA's investments in the 60s, and they've reported many times to Congress on the spinoff of businesses from healthcare and telecommunications and energy that have come out of that program, these things have to survive multiple administrations and have bipartisan support. So when we see that, like we've seen in Congressman Velazquez's state with the Center for Nanoscale Science and Engineering, You can attract global companies. Some of the best companies in the world have come there now for the GE450C development and are matching the state funds that come in, and they are working to try to get some Federal matching as well. And the members that participate are committed to small and minority-owned businesses getting a big part of the participation there. So you can see this kind of synchronization and cooperation is really critical to yield long-term success.
I would just echo the long-term aspect of it. I think that one of the things that has helped us really with working with Intel is Intel's long-term vision. This differs actually from the vision of venture capitalists, who are the main source of funding to people like us. Intel can take a much longer view, partly because it's a corporation. And so the relationship we have, we can go through peaks and troughs, and Intel will stick with us because they value the technology over the long term. So it's really long-term investment for us, patient investment, which we perhaps wouldn't get from the venture capital community, and we won't get a look from the banking community. At this point in our company's development, sources of loan capital are simply not available at all. And that's something, of course, that would be helpful to us as we want to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.